If not for the brute force of colonialism, there is no reason to have expected the various ethnic nationalities within Nigerian boundaries to have come together. For centuries, the Igbos, Yorubas, and Hausas, and several other ethnic groups conducted trade between themselves, yet there was never an attempt at amalgamation by any of these groups. But with the barrel of the gun, Britain imposed what was certainly awkward. Until 1900, when the Northern Nigerian Protectorate and the Southern Nigerian Protectorate passed into the hands of the British Crown, parts of Nigeria and later the whole of Nigeria was under the influence of the Royal Niger Company. By 1906, the British merged the smaller Lagos colony with the Southern Nigerian Protectorate to form the colony of Southern Nigeria. Lord Frederick Lugard was a staunch advocate for the amalgamation of Nigeria, but his reasons were anything but altruistic. According to the Niger Committee report of 1898, the amalgamation of the three jurisdictions of Nigeria will reduce administrative expenses and facilitate deployment of resources and money between the areas. Specifically, it would enable direct subsidy of the less profitable northern Nigeria. The amalgamation of different ethnic and religious groups into one federation created internal tension which persists in Nigeria to the present day. Even from the way colonialism panned out, it was obvious that the people who were lumped together were different. Britain's preferred method of subjugation was through indirect rule, which was most successful in the north, partially successful in the west, but highly resisted in the east with brutal consequences. After 60 years of colonialism, Nigerians were granted self-government, but even this process was fraught with disagreement. A few years before 1960, the North actually rejected self-rule at a time most of the South was agitating for it. But because the country was a single geopolitical entity, its independence is dated October 1st, 1960. In reality, the Southwest and the Southeast actually began to enjoy self-rule as early as 1957, before the North joined 2 years later in 1959. Due to these fundamental flaws in the makeup of Nigeria, with fault lines clearly existing between the three major ethnic groups, it was only a matter of time before something caused an ignition. One of the manifestations of these fault lines was a reality of regional parties rather than truly national parties. The NPC was obviously northern, the NCNC was eastern, and the AG, standing for Action Group, was western. 3 years after independence, Nigeria became a republic, ending the reign of the Queen of England over the new nation. Interestingly, there was an alliance between the NCNC and the NPC, which saw Nnamdi Azikiwe serve as Nigeria's first indigenous governor general and later as first president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Through this period, Alhaji Tafawa Balewa was prime minister, leaving Chief Obafemi Awolowo, leader of the Action Group, as leader of the opposition in parliament. In the 1965 election, there was a realignment that saw the NCNC and elements of the AG coalesce into the new opposition. Just 1 year later, young army officers largely from the southeast attempted to overthrow the government, but were prevented incidentally by another officer from the southeast named Aguiyi-Ironsi. Shortly after this, there was a counter-coup by officers, largely from the north, during which General Ironsi was killed. But even this successful coup later proved to be the tip of the iceberg, as it seemed to have only whet the appetite of the masterminds, who went on a killing spree, apparently to avenge the killing of Tafawa Balewa and the Sudan of Sokoto. Fearing genocide, the governor of Eastern Region at the time, Colonel Odumegu Ojukwu, attempted to secede from Nigeria by declaring the Republic of Biafra. This event led to a 30-month civil war that represents the worst days of Nigeria's existence as a nation. After 3 million casualties on both sides, the war came to an end in the early days of 1970, with the then head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, famously declaring that there was no victor and no vanquished. A serious rebuilding effort commenced in the areas ravaged by war, and the National Youth Service Corps was established in 1973 as a tool of integration so that young Nigerians will feel more Nigerian and give up a parochial inclination. To show that the war was truly over, Biafran soldiers were truly reabsorbed into the Nigerian army with their former ranks restored. Whether through acts of commission or omission, the cry for Biafra has never really been extinguished in the Nigerian polity, rising to a crescendo whenever Igbos feel marginalized. Several years ago, the movement for the sovereign state of Biafra, MASOB, was formed, but not even MASOB could boast of the profile of the recently established Independent People of Biafra, otherwise known as IPOB, are the Igbos, whom IPOB claims to represent in support of their activities. Why is the agitation for Biafra gaining momentum afresh over 40 years after the last shots of the war were fired? This hot topic will be treated by an all-Igbo panel of lawyers, one of whom is Nollywood's own Kenneth Okonkwo. Please join us. Welcome to the summit. For some months now, the word Biafra has formed part of our lexicon. But seriously speaking, the question is, are the Igbos monolithic? You'll be really very surprised. With me in the studio to prove this point are Bishop Felix Che Oyinatumba. He's president of the Ohaneze Youth Forum and also a secretary to the Nigerian Bar Association, the Buhari branch. Also with us, you have Barrister Godwin Dugu. He's a legal advisor to the Nigerian Bar Association, Abuja branch. And of course, to grace this particular panel is no other than Dr. Kenneth Okonkwo, a well-renowned Nollywood actor and producer. Welcome.
Thank you.
There are those people who want Biafra to go one way, and there are those who are saying, look, we love our Nigeria. What is really happening? Can we start with you?
No, for me, Biafra is just an expression of discontentment with the present Nigeria. Not a political, geographically expressed entity, but just a state of being. It's a psychological thing for me to say I'm a Biafran, because when one feels the injustice, you're forced to move into your shell, and the shell for an average Igbo man is Biafra in the face of injustice in this entity called Nigeria.
What exactly do the Biafrans want? What are the people who are agitating for Biafra? What is the real story here?
Okay, thank you very much. The issue of Biafra, if you take a look at election, let's start from 1999. Let me not go back to 1970 after the war. No, I can even go back to state creation, where it all started. The military are the ones started with the responsibility, because the dictator, they need no legislation for state creation. They call it either Armed Forces Ruling Council, Provisional Ruling Council, Supreme Ruling Council by Morotala. And these military dictators are all from the north, apart from the one who came by necessity, Obasanjo. And look at from three regions, south, eastern Nigeria, western Nigeria, northern Nigeria. Then after 1963-64, we had Midwest. So by state creation, let's start from it. The only geopolitical zone with 5 states is Southeast.
So what you're saying is that you need more states.
That is inequality number one.
Okay.
Number 2, I'm from Enugu State. With our population, go to any part of north, you will find Nsukka. Nsukka is due for 2 states, but we are clamoring for just 1. Then, take the case of Kano State, the state in Nigeria with 44 local governments. And the injustice and imbalance in the system is that the allocation goes from federal to each of these local governments. We discover that the allocation going from the federation account to Kano State doubles that of Enugu, Anambra, and Ebonyi. That aside, coming to appointments, look at the present government, a population that contributes to at least 40% of the entire nation. Service chiefs, none is given to an able man. They go to the director generals, the parastatals, we are not represented. Lastly, just about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Southeast Development Commission, B, at the House of Representatives, the lower chamber, you will see the celebration that the bee has been killed. You see people jubilating.
So
If you look at the entire system, the expression is that we are not part of this system, part of Nigeria. That is what Nigerians are telling us.
Can you really say that? Because
Of course.
do you agree?
No.
No.
You're being uncharitable with the truth and to Nigeria.
Okay.
We are here in Abuja, and because we are Nigerian citizens, and not because we are Igbos. Now, it is on record that over 40% of landed properties in Abuja belongs to Igbos. Same Lagos. Ditto major cities in Nigeria.
Through our personal efforts.
Oh, good. Your
For
personal
our
effort
individual efforts.
expressed in Nigeria, not expressed in Igbo land. Now, those your personal efforts came to what you call Nigeria, minusing the 5 states you've mentioned. So, if Nigeria has not given you the platform to express that thing, how come you didn't express it
Why would
in your
Nigeria
state?
give us? We invested in this country, even in independence.
Beautiful.
So
When you start calling the country you invested in a zoo, means you are no longer animal in the zoo. You are not either the zookeeper or a visitor to the zoo.
Well, let me bring Kenneth in. Kenneth, well, you have been good to Nollywood. Nollywood has been good to you.
Very well.
What is your position on this issue called Biafra?
First of all, Biafra that I know came into existence by 1997. Biafra as a word is not an Igbo word. Biafra is not in Igbo land. Biafra is not in Igbo nation. The bite of Biafra has always been a territory as part of Nigeria. What happened in 1967 was that because of the pogrom in the north, Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, as he then was, simply said, anybody that can come within this territory that I am a governor, I will guarantee the safety of his life and his property. And in order to be able to secure it, he had to declare the independence of that territory, and he called it Biafra. It was not an Igbo territory alone. It included all the nationalities within the east of Nigeria then, because he was the governor of the east. So because the security of the people that were of Igbo nationality, and all others, because then he wouldn't have known who is Igbo and who is not.
Correct.
We are threatened. Then that was why he declared it. So the Biafra now, for me, is an idea. It is no longer a territory. I am a Nigerian, and I will continue to be a Nigerian. And whoever is clamoring for a sovereign state, with due respect, should find another nomenclature, should find and should not desecrate the spirit of Biafra. The Biafra of 1967 was a war of necessity. The Biafra of 2017 is a war of choice. Because, like he has pointed out, we are in Nigeria. We are Nigerians. And by virtue of being Nigerians, that's why we are here. That's why some Yorubas are in the southeast. That's why we are intertwined without respect to ethnic origins. Let me let you know this. At any point in history where you have multiplicity of ethnic groups coming together, there will always be one ethnic group that will not have it as much as the other from time to time. From 1999, I can tell you that a man from Southwest was president for 8 years. Then, between 2011 and 2015, nobody from the Southwest was in the first CIS at all. From the presidency down to the deputy speaker of the House of Representatives. You had Goodluck Jonathan, you had Sambo Namadi, you had David Mack, you had Ike Kweremadu, you had Tambuwal, you had Emeka Ihedioha. They wouldn't cry for a different country just because of that
imbalance as well.
Just within that 4 years. Because naturally, due to your political permutations, you can gain and you can lose. But let me tell you, am I saying there is no marginalization or there is no injustice? Why not?
Nigeria is a signatory to the African human rights, and also we're signatory to the United Nations charter that allows you to have, self-determination. So what stops the people agitating for Biafra?
Oh, no. You see, there is no wrong with agitation, but you can't compel me to buy your ideas. And no human right is automatic. It has to be activated. Now, Nigeria is signatory to all these charters. Doesn't make automatic. Now, the people clamoring for Biafra, you ask them what or where is Biafra, they bring my brothers from South. And some becomes too ambitious and join Kogi. And the Kogi people, the Galas will tell you, no, they're not part of that enclave called Biafra. The Ogoja man will tell you it's not Biafra. What's the name of these immediate brothers in the river? Ikwere will tell you they're not Biafra, so count us out. So he now brings us the 5 southeast states. Second thing I want to say before I get into the other one, Biafra died with Ojukwu. The territory called Biafra died with Ojukwu. Ojukwu was buried as a colonel in Nigerian army.
God bless you.
He wasn't buried as a Biafra soldier. And before he died, some of the interviews he granted, he made it clear when he was talking to Wazirike that this Biafra you people are talking about is not it.
It's on record.
Wazirike came back from India and these people don't know Ojukwu. Before 1999, when OPC started the agitation for Oodua Republic, Wazirike felt as a reply to Frederick Fashion, who started before Gani Adams, militarized it, was to now start resurrecting the ghost of Biafra. And started Masop, but he had to leave Ojukwu's house and went to Sele Ijesha and started from Sele Ijesha before he finally relocated to Onimo. So Biafra is gone and buried. But as an expression of I, an Igbo man, not being included in the scheme of things in Nigeria, when the push comes to shove, I said, man, I'm a Biafran. You don't do this to me. Give me equal right. Give me my own due. The way you have given Arewa man, it has become this. The way you've given an Odua man. So what do you give to me as an Igbo man in this marriage of convenience, or marriage that was forced on us by Lord Lugard after he got drunk and decided to play along with Shaw, and they gave us this. So now we are strange bedfellows, trying to see how this 6-spring bed can accommodate us. If you've been to boarding school and there is scarcity of bed, you do head to toe to make sure that 3 of you can sleep on 6 spring. One head there, one leg there, one head there. We accommodate each other. So why can't we, despite not getting all rosy, say, men and brethren, we made some mistakes?
So it's obvious that not all Igbos share the view of the creation of another Biafra, because according to, Ojukwu is dead and Biafra died with them.
And just to add to what he said about...
That is not correct position.
Hang on.
Okay, just to add to what he said about Ojukwu.
Yes.
Let me say it boldly. Apart from Lord Lugard, who amalgamated Nigeria in 1914, because when they say we were forced together, I sincerely beg to disagree. The amalgamation was in 1914, and it was done for administrative convenience of the British. So our opinion was not sought, as in Nigerians. But 1960, the independent constitution of 1960 was a document that the three regions then went for conferences and they came together and agreed that they will be one country. If you check our constitution, you see Sharia, you see that they are not British. These are results of conferences and dialogue between principally Ahmadu Bello, representing the North, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, representing the East, and Awolowo. And you remember the discordant tone. Before they agreed, we would have had our independence in 1954. But because there were some issues that were not settled, that was why it was shifted to 1960. So I sincerely disagree when anybody is saying we were compelled to be together. Now, coming to the issue of Ojukwu, the project Nigeria, apart from the British, is a project which the Igbo man signed on to first. Remember, we were told the North said they didn't want one Nigeria because they believed that the South has gone further than them and will take advantage of that. Then the West agreed with them actually that look, it will be a drawback because we have really gone further. But Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, at the risk of not being the prime minister, said no, Nigeria is better one because eventually, for the sake of the black man, eventually, for the sake that the component units will be better in one nation than they will be differently, which I agree. Because Nigeria is the most powerful black nation on earth now. Because why? We are enjoying synergistic effect. If we are six countries, for instance, each part of the country, which is Nigeria, will maintain its navy, maintain its army, maintain its, and that is how they become Banana Republic.
That's correct.
But when we are one now, you see that we have one for all those ones. Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu is one person that was passionate about Nigeria.
We'll have a quick break. Welcome back. Of course, you're watching the summit. And the topic is Biafra. In fact, to put it straight, these are some erudite Igbo citizens, some defending the need for Biafra, others saying, look, we love our Nigeria. Which part of the agitation that you think is justifiable?
Well, the entire arrangement, federal arrangement of Nigeria, has not favored an Igbo man.
Yeah, tell us the part that mainly, the part that does not favor the Igbo man.
So you use quota system, where they look at it that the Igbo man is doing well. In the military, who is using quota system? In the army.
Okay.
So it's not just about talking about what is written on paper. We are talking about practice. In practice, what happens in the street? What happens to the police stations we go? Going by our population. We're saying we are not fully represented in Nigeria arrangement. Restructure if you want us to be part of it. Stop marginalizing an Igbo man. 1983, 79 to 83, when Alhaji Shehu Shagari was the president, the issue of Biafra was not there because we were given sense of belonging. Look at the present government. Does it look as if we are part of this system?
But let me ask you, doesn't it make sense, at least you have leaders, doesn't it make sense for the leaders to come together to negotiate? Why don't we keep talking instead of agitating to have some secession or of some sort? You want a Biafra, which some have already debunked to say is non-existent.
The little one that would have given us sense of belonging, the most recent one that I just told you about, Southeast Development Commission, people were celebrating. You look at it as if it was another civil war between the Igbos and non-Igbos, especially the northern part of the country.
But
which other is going? No, wait. You allow me.
Let's introduce within a timeline, please. Within a timeline. At what point did that bill come on board? After Biafra has started making moves, calling Nigerians zoo, and you want Nigerians to help you. Politics is a game of number. and negotiation.
And what says that their number are better?
No. You
Has there been any census in Nigeria that will come to terms that this is the true population of Nigeria?
The way Nigeria is as at now, population doesn't favor you. So you need to negotiate.
It's not true.
Kanu has
no.
Kanu has local government areas which you consider to.
Okay.
So
we consider to.
Kanu swallows
because it was created by a military, by a dictator.
Good. Have you sponsored a bill for this restructuring?
Sponsored a bill? Yes. The little one we sponsored. What happened to it?
Go ahead.
What happened to it? Then Ken, let me just reply to Ken, saying that Ojukwu was buried with Biafra.
I said so. I said so. I said so. I said Biafra died with Ojukwu. I said so.
Died with Ojukwu. That is not correct.
And they gave him a Nigerian boot and paid him pension as a.
I was to say what
he was
to say.
He was receiving pension as a colonel, retiree colonel from the Nigerian army until he died.
Okay, that was.
And Ojukwu also contested to become president of Nigeria with Abga.
That's correct.
Good.
He also ran to become a senator in Nigeria.
Good.
That is correct. I agree.
So can you be more Biafran than Ojukwu?
Yes. No.
That's the question.
No. Wait. After contesting, nobody is saying Ojukwu didn't contest. But mind you that one thing we are talking about is equality.
Yes.
We didn't say give us Biafra. I told you that. 83.
That obviously you're not an IPOB member.
No.
Because no IPOB member will say don't give me Biafra. They say they want Biafra. Give me Biafra or I die.
As an option. Or the president has spoken.
No option.
No.
They came late. Brother,
no.
Timeline. Put it within.
Okay. Please let me come in here.
Yeah.
Right. I was saying yes, so that nobody misquotes me. I've told you the reason why Biafra had to come in 1967. It was a war of necessity. Every human being is entitled to self-defense when he is to be decimated by any force. That war came because of the inexperience of the leaders of those days, because of the ignorance of the followers, and because of the mistakes made from both sides. We will recall that the origin of it started with the coup of Nzogu, which was good, which was partially executed, and then killed some people from certain sides of the country.
That is correct.
And left
Good. And then there was a counter coup, which ought to, rightly, if it's a coup, because if you came by coup and you go by coup, you have nobody to blame. It would have taken care of the leaders only, and Nigeria would have gone on, and there wouldn't have been problem. What brought Biafra was the pogrom. And that is why we are saying, we are talking about this quick notice, which shouldn't have been at all. When innocent civilians and their families were killed in the streets of North for just being Igbo, that was the program. And the aim of the program was not that the North wanted to take power. They've already taken power once you take over the leadership. It was because they said they wanted their own country, Araba, and so that the Igbos should go. That was why that the Biafra had to be declared. And if you ask me, I would say justifiably so. Because if you're killed, there is no other alternative for you to run to any enclave where you can feel secure. That's why I say it was a war of necessity. But whoever is coming in 2017 today to be talking about Biafra, that's a war of choice. Now, Ojukwu wanted to avoid Biafra at all costs. In Aburi
conference.
Ojukwu went there in Aburi. That was when crisis had begun. That was when the pogrom has begun. Yet he did not go to seek for a separate country. He went there to seek for restructuring of Nigeria. And it was agreed and signed. And it was the Nigerian side to then, as in that also reneged. That's why I said mistakes on both sides and inexperience of the leaders of those days. Now, today, that is the same restructuring every part of Nigeria is asking for. Now, when you now renege on such promise without another agreement, you create a suspicion, more suspicion. Now, he left before the war was over. Thank God he did not die in exile. He came back. And he didn't come back as a Biafran.
God bless you. You're not MPP, you're MPN.
He couldn't have come back as a Biafra, having lost the war.
Hold on.
It's not possible for him to come back as a Biafra.
Please, don't
Otherwise, he should have been coming back with other armies to fight.
Don't interrupt.
He has lost the war.
Good.
No.
Hold on. He came back. We're talking about Ojukwu. I'm trying to tell you why I say I support him. He came back. He could have said, no, I am not coming back. It's Biafra or death. We had it
No,
as
he
a
ran away.
decimal. No, hold on, please.
No.
Okay, let him finish his point,
good.
I think. Yeah.
I am not holding brief for him. I am saying that he is a true Nigerian, and I'm proving it. Remember, why I don't want to agree with you is I'm not saying he did not leave Nigeria. I'm saying that when the situation came to the point that he was assured that the Igbos will not be killed because they are Igbos, he was willing to become a Nigerian because he never, in his own mind, wanted to divide Nigeria to become a member of another country. When he came back as a Nigerian. And Tanko Yakasa told us that he decided to join MPN in order to reintegrate the Igbos to the mainstream politics. I'm not saying I agree with him. I'm saying what happened as in history. Now, Ojukwu himself, from that day on,
Hold on.
he granted an interview in one Guardian magazine, and he said he will fight again if Nigeria is threatened. And Ojukwu again, from that day onwards, kept telling the Igbos that wherever you are, you should learn to defend yourselves there. Because we know the experience that we had. So Ojukwu himself was pardoned for fighting in Biafra. He accepted the pardon. He was paid all his gratuities and pension as a Nigerian officer.
Colonel.
He accepted it. He died a Nigerian. He was buried a Nigerian by Nigerian soldiers and officers, and he was clothed in Nigerian flag.
Given the dominance of the Igbos in Nigeria, could you give us the areas where creating a Biafra is justifiable given the economic dominance of the Igbos in Nigeria? You cannot, I mean, would you disagree that Igbos have invested throughout Nigeria, in Abuja, in Kaduna, in Kano, everywhere, in Lagos?
In Jos.
Okay, so
In Sokoto.
how justifiable
You are
would you say
mentioning-
now?
Yes,
You know, sorry, if the Arawa boys say you go home, do you understand the colossal loss that this will be in terms of, rather than you negotiating to say, okay, we want a better Nigeria, the restructure that everyone is talking about?
Okay. Mind you, from the beginning of the program, I did mention that the agitation for Biafra is an option.
It's an option, but it's one of the loudest now.
Yes.
Because it's because of that you have the Arawa boys. I mean, would you blame them?
Okay.
Because when somebody's been telling you, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this, eventually you say, look, to your leaders, let them have it.
Okay. Shola, also recall that the IPOB are harmless.
I
harmless.
cannot ask you, are you a member?
I'm not.
Then you can't speak for them. Speak for yourself as an Igbo person.
As an
I
Igbo.
Who is
associate with,
sympathetic?
I associate.
Now, because IPOB has
I'm
maintained
not a
that they
member.
want their own state.
No.
They say they want Biafra.
No.
Now,
Unequivocally.
Yes.
Now, let me come in here now.
Option.
No,
There's
it's not an option for
something-
them.
There's something you say that
It's not an option for them.
Sorry.
there's something you
Kenneth,
say
yeah.
that is not quite correct.
Okay.
I want to tell you authoritatively that if what the Arewa, not even Arewa youths, if what some organizations in the north said, if they want to have their Biafra, allow them.
Yes.
I will tell you there's nothing wrong in what they say.
Agitation did not just start from IPOB. At the point you have agitation from South-South, militants from with several nomenclatures. And at every given time, you see federal government reaching out to them for negotiation.
Yes.
What stops that of
Beautiful.
IPOB?
Because IPOB did not give room for negotiation.
We'll be right back. You're watching The Topic by Biafra. This is The Summit. Welcome back to The Summit. The topic is Biafra. And as you can see, there is no absence of energy in this room. Kenneth, I asked Godwin a question earlier. The Igbos, the dominance of Igbos economically, why would anybody in their right mind want to jettison all that achievement, all those investments, and want to go to just one land where
Landlocked.
completely landlocked, and there's no proof that even all the Igbos can get along.
Now, first of all, I think the economic dominance originated from the Igbo man's traditional way of evaluating success. The success of an Igbo man is measured not by the wealth of your father, but by your own wealth, gotten by solid personal achievement. That is how Chinua Achebe, for instance, described it. And that is what I am saying, and I maintain it, that the best gift God has given to the Igbo man is the Nigerian land. And the best gift God has given to Nigeria as a country is the Igbo man. And so I would not want to say economic dominance. That is wrong. Because it is that fear of domination that brought this suspicion against the Igbos. I would rather say that they are doing well economically. But other regions also are doing very well. As a matter of fact, there is this philosophy that manufacturing is being governed by the West. But it is commercial, as in buying and selling, that is good. And then, if you come to the North, there are certain traits also that are peculiar to them. I've not seen an Igbo man who knows how to rear cattle very well.
Or how to exchange dollar.
Oh. So, every region is doing well economically. The only thing that is quite salutary when it comes to the Igbo man is that without the governmental support, he is doing well economically. And it's simple, because he has wide expanse of land to operate in, and there is freedom for him to own and live as resident anywhere he wants in Nigeria.
Is it possible
Yes.
that some of the so-called Igbo leaders
Yes.
have not literally repudiated some of the issues that those clamoring for an Igbo state,
Yes.
I mean for a Biafra or Igbo state,
Yes.
why has there been the absence of these leaders?
You see one thing, you hear what you expect to hear, and you see what you expect to see. First of all, and I say this with every degree of responsibility, there is no one of those agitators that are either political leaders or religious leaders or traditional leaders. If you ask me, and respectfully, I would say they are simply entities gasping for breath, for relevance.
Those current agitators.
Yes.
Exactly,
Okay.
and I make my point. When I wanted to be relevant, I went into an area through creativity and God's talent. I went into an area that was not there before. In 1992, that was when Nigeria was a pariah state. It was as if you're not a criminal, you won't make out anything good. Nigeria was governed by the military. We cannot even travel anyhow. It was a pariah state. But that was when a group of talented young Igbo professionals living in Lagos came together and did a movie, something that has not been done before, called Living in Bondage, which I had the privilege of being the first actor that acted it. And Nigerians so loved it, irrespective of tribe, irrespective of race, irrespective of everybody in Nigeria. The first copy of the Igbo films that came out, they were not subtitled.
Yeah.
The first copies. It was the clamor from the non-Igbos that made us to take it back to the studio to subtitle it. You cannot tell me that the Yorubas don't like the Igbos. It's not true. You cannot tell me the Hausas don't like the Igbos. It's not true. Let me tell you what is happening. There is nobody in Nigeria that is left in any doubt that we have problem of leadership.
God bless you.
From 1960 till date. And so that problem of leadership is both, it cuts across. In democracy, for instance, is it the Hausa man that is governing my state? What is the degree of performance the leaders have done? How many of those Biafrans, for instance, so-called, are holding their governors accountable? They are holding their, first and foremost, charity begins at home.
Now listen, when Nnamdi Kanu was released from Kuje, rightly or wrongly, it was Chudoka of road safety that drove him out. The Arewa boys are saying, the Igbo leaders, you're not saying anything, and your boys are busy running riot like a bull in a China shop, and people are keeping quiet. People are keeping criminally quiet. They pointed out these things. Nobody
there is no record as to riots.
Hold on.
No, when I mean riot, it's figurative. It's figurative. It's expression. No, when I mean running riot or running amok, I'm not saying, it's just figuratively.
Yes.
So our Igbo leaders kept quiet. You give Peter Obi, my very good friend, a platform. He will tell me about shoes and wristwatch. Instead of a platform to galvanize and say this is where Nigerians stand on issues, or the Igbo stand on issues. You give my brother, the man from NEC, Sam Amadi. These are young thugs who are coming up to take over from these old brigades. Yet the Igbos are like these old brigades, these dying war horses, to still be the ones that will determine what will happen to the Igbo nation in the next 40 years. That is the problem of leadership. There has not been proper handover of baton from that old dying generation of Iwanyang. What's the name of this our brother? This Oyibonized brother of ours, Commonwealth man, Emeka Nyoko. It's not about drinking coffee or being secretary of ECOWAS. And to the grey-haired Ekwueme. The problem is they have not properly structured handing over. Now we have brought our young ones, by virtue of however they emerge, the likes of Ojus Okano, the likes of the first 99, Mbaznuju, Ebano, that generation of 99 to 2007. How have they shown leadership? To me, who is now a 10th generation by virtue of age or position in life, what have they done? Now, having failed to do these things, they are now pointing us at Nigeria. Nigeria is not my problem. The Hausa man or the Fulani man up there is not my problem. My problem is that my brother, called Governor Rojas, has put down the library and is busy building Biafra on top of your library was in Imo State. Rojas has done all manner of things that cannot be accountable. The so-called Mori, let me give you, they took 2 billion, what's the name of this man? The governor before Rojas, the young man, Hakim, took 2 billion bond from UBA, and we questioned him. He said he is doing Mori resort, and they dredged Mori by Olu Road. Up to now, nothing has happened. Sorry. So who has bothered to say, Mr. Man, give me account? But they will run to World Igbo Congress in Atlanta and meet our brothers. If you tables of people who are funding IPOB and Nigerians in diaspora, I have had to block them on Facebook. You can't be in diaspora and be causing trouble. Come home and lead from the front. So the problem we are having is that the voices that get to be heard are the loudest, empty voices. Reasonable ones like us don't get to be. If we are not opportune to be here, most people would think that all the Igbos are like that.
No. That's why when we started it and made it clear.
So we need
you're not monolithic.
We need to engage. Let me finish. We need to engage our leaders. When Governor Fashola Sidon was sent the Igbo people to Headbridge, Obi retaliated and sent them to Abakaliki. Within that same period, former Governor Oji, Theodore, whatever his title is, that is snoring in the Senate, now chose to retire, now chose to send away my sisters who married his people. The Imo State ladies who were married to Abia people were retrenched from civil service. Now, have that helped me as an Imo man?
For all the people clamoring to go and all be in the Igbo land, have you, the Igbos, managed to get along?
No.
So
no.
We can't.
How do you?
We can't, because even in my state, that's what they call Osu, the outcast system. Now, I have a very brilliant boy who was organizing ABGA in Owerri West. For the sake of the stigma, I will not mention his name, but I will describe the area. It's Owerri West, so those on record that know where Owerri West is. The guy was grooming ABGA. When he now came to the turn of taking ticket, they say he's an Osu, he's an outcast. They didn't give him ticket to run for local government election, and this among ourselves. So when I get Biafra, with my Osu cousin, they are allowed to be governor.
It's just the politics. You are not allowed to hold position in Nigeria because you're an Igbo man.
Let me come in here. Let me make it clear. The position of the governor of Enugu State is a Nigerian position. It's not an Igbo man's position.
No other person would have been governor of Enugu State by the arrangement now.
Good, that's what I'm saying. That's democracy.
Based on the constitution.
Good.
So what we are demanding for is more better arrangement.
It's because that because Enugu citizens chose the person. If Enugu citizens tomorrow say he's an Hausa man that will be the governor of Enugu State, there's nothing that will happen.
Simple.
No, nothing will happen.
Good. Igbos have are in the House of National House of Reps from Lagos.
Collecting the same Nigerian naira without discriminating.
Good. Now, what am I saying? Now, let's come in here. Am I saying that there is no injustice meted out to the different zones? Of course, I have said it here. There is failure of leadership.
Dr. Ken, what I'm saying is our own has gone
let
beyond
me come in here.
mere injustice down to oppression.
Let him finish.
And that is the reason for.
You see, there was a
agitation.
reason why North had one region and South had 3 regions, and they did not bother. There was a reason for it. It was because of the efficacy of the 1960 Constitution that built the structure of Nigeria on productivity and not on consumption. Now, the military came into power and abrogated the federal structure and replaced it with a unitary system. My brother, you and I know who brought the first military regime in Nigeria. Ironically, his name is combined to include the North and the South. He is a Kaduna as well as he is an Zogo.
No, please, with due respect, he's one of the most patriotic Nigerians
that ever lived. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to let you know that the person that made that coup is an Igbo man. For you to know why I'm saying it came as a mistake from both sides. And the military abrogated.
One side is paying the price.
No, hold
because
on.
that side has not negotiated, have not learned how to play the politics.
No,
Sorry,
let me
I have nothing to say.
What I'm saying is this.
Felix, let him finish.
The structure we had then that made the North as big as they are to agree to have one region, while the South had 3, and they did not complain, was because the structure was based on productivity. You are rewarded as much as you produce. Immediately the military came in and abrogated that structure and replaced it with unitary system. They now started sharing based on how many local governments, how many states that you have. And then it started becoming attractive to have as many states as you want, even when the states are unviable.
Yeah.
I support restructuring, not because of political convenience to some ethnic jingoists, but because of economic viability.
The topic has been Biafra, and you are watching the summit. You're welcome back to the summit, and you can see that our Igbo brothers have not disappointed in any way. I would like to say this just for literally a parting shot. What palliative measures do you feel need to be put in place in order to be able to bring all the parties together? I'm talking of the those agitating and those of you who feel that Nigeria is it. Godwin, what measures do you think need to be in place?
Number one is Oyinatumba and Dr. Kenneth. They've been unable to give me one committee set by federal government to approach IPOB members. None. If federal government want to be sincere to this agitation, set a committee. I think they're enjoying the whole thing. Well, they're enjoying it. If they are not enjoying it, set a committee. And set a, of course, set a committee. They're enjoying the whole thing.
Let him finish.
Just go and if they shout, you can go and kill. These are harmless, innocent Igbo young men that are just agitating. If you are not restructuring, if you are not making a part of your system, allow us go. Where we have where we can feel free.
When you want to dialogue, you should be able to articulate what you want. When you want the government to approach you, in any case, what is wrong in you approaching the government? You're saying
if the government
what is wrong in your approaching the government? If you want to make proposals, for instance, for what you want, do you make proposal and put it in your under your suitcase or something? So if you want to agitate, you're agitating to the government. That is the right way to do things. Again, who are you representing? Have you been able to establish you're representing the Igbo people? I am an Igbo person, and I've told you that Biafra is not an Igbo word, and I'm saying it openly. It's not in Igbo land. It has been a territory before the declaration of Biafra.
It's
not in Igbo nation. So when you call yourself Biafrans, are you naming me alongside it? So what I'm saying is, are you negotiating on whose behalf? You have to articulate these things because we have our elected representatives. We have our traditional rulers. We have our religious leaders. So on what basis and who are you representing? That's another issue. Some of them are agitating, seeking for relevance so that they can make a lot of money from it and let them be known. Then again, for me, the solution, like I said before, there is a need for restructuring. And why are some people afraid of restructuring? Democracy in itself is about restructuring. America, Puerto Rico just voted the other time that they want to be a full state, a full province of America. If America accepts it, that is restructuring.
But do you know why that?
Yeah, you know?
Because they've been on their own for a long time and they failed.
They cannot, yes, that's what I'm saying. They cannot, so they're going back.
So being part
of
America,
yes,
like
like
vibrant economy.
Right. Now, that is viability I'm talking about.
Correct.
People should not be afraid to dialogue. People should not be, if IPOB is willing to dialogue with government should not be afraid to dialogue with them. They should not be afraid to dialogue with government.
But then the question will be, I know I said that was my last question.
Right.
Are you dialoguing with the right people?
But I just finished the analysis.
Yeah, given the leadership structure.
Giving the reason.
Either you're a traditional ruler, who are they representing?
Right
You can just...
No, they can't be
No,
right
you
people.
cannot be.
How?
Because if you do that, you have killed the whole essence of dialogue. Because people will...
They are the very right person.
Who are the right people?
Coming up,
Yeah.
a group of youths commanding about 75 million youths in this country came to me. They told me I have been their role model. What is their way forward?
We're looking for leaders.
Soon you will see both of us doing things. And why? Democracy is all about acceptance authority. It's not a formal authority. Do people accept you to be their leader? So when you say dialogue with this person, now in the Biafra movement alone, you have Biafra independence movement. That's the one Masob has run into now. You have Masob. You have IPOB. You have Zion.
You say IPOB.
Yes.
Cannot lead.
And
which are the person that gave you dates, a particular date.
Yes.
The entire Southeast, I was in Enugu, they started.
No, you're getting it
That's it. I
wrong.
hope obey. People sat out of fear.
Out of fear. So they were able to command the entire
Let me tell you, it's not true. You're misunderstanding the issue. The seat at home was not in sympathy for Biafra to be
heroes.
Then
commemoration.
Then who originated it?
Let me finish. It
Who
is
originated
no.
it? Commemoration.
It has been there.
Yeah, before IPO.
Masob has been doing
They've
it.
been doing it.
Igbos themselves.
Oh, Masob has been doing
Yes,
that.
yes,
It's not us who agree with Masob.
No, because they said heroes that died.
Who are the leaders? Who are the coordinators?
And let me tell you,
all of us lost
one
uncle or the other in the war.
Okay, and you respect
Biafra
Yes.
And whose idea?
Nigeria history. You see,
I agree with you.
Nigeria government should start seeing Biafra
as inevitable nationhood.
history.
Now I
By
can
your
see
colleagues.
why
That is
we
the
cannot put all of you in that Igbo land. That place will explode.
Oh, no,
or
no.
implode, explode, and
Even
everything.
if we are
We
in
disagree
Igbo
to agree.
There's something
Like I told
about,
you, we'll box ourselves
Igbos
and resolve.
Thank you very
Igbos
much.
are Republicans by nature.
Thank
Even
you.
if we go home, we'll
Thank
still
you.
find a common front.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
box
Thank you.
because,
Thank you. Woo! This is one to remember. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this special the special program on Biafra. It's quite an opportunity to have Kenneth, whom you will be having plenty of opportunity to see on your screen, both television and the large screen. And Barrister,
No. I prefer to be Bishop of the Senate Assembly.
The Bishop of the Senate Assembly?
Yeah, my diocese is worldwide.
Worldwide.
Thank you very much. We are all sinners in search of grace.
Okay, Felix. And Godwin, I think you were overmatched. I think next time I'll bring somebody else to support you. You see, I was powerless. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, sir. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
It's really a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Felix. Can I?
Thank you.
All right.